ran into Pat and Kim the other day, right?
You have it on the show, we're going live here.
Huh?
Talk about it after the show.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, stay tuned for another original Studio B production right here on the Voice17104.com.
Welcome to Did You Know podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of African American communities. Through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there's another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly, impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Happy New Year's. Well, folks, this is 2023. And I hope this is going to be a good year. I hope it's going to be a good year for you. I hope it's going to be a good year for me. And I hope it's going to be a good year for our community, because I think that that's very important. I'm going to reflect on where I thought I wanted to be in this program and where I think that I should go. I've always felt that we need to define our own stories and we need to tell who we are and what we're about. And I will continue to do that. But I also now realize that we need to just every now and then talk about some other things. Economic development and political power. And I'm going to talk about and history. I realize now that we don't know our history. Not only we don't know our history, we don't tell our history to our young people. And so therefore, our young people don't really realize that we were kings, queens, and that we've done a lot in society, in the world overall, because everything has always been painted a negative for us. So this year, I'm going to concentrate and I'm going to continue to bring up, we have an obligation to tell our history and teach our history to our young people. It's on us, because they don't know. And I probably realize that more now. I had a conversation with a couple of people the other day, and they were saying how they were going to Myrtle Beach. And they said, oh yeah, we go to Myrtle Beach. And some of them said that they went to Wilmington, Delaware. And this was a European group. And I said, yeah. I said, my mother and father grew up in the South. And I remember when I was a child, I got on the bus and from Pittsburgh to Washington. And once I got to Virginia, I had to get on the back of the bus. And they looked at me. I said, this is in my day and age. And they said, I didn't know that. And I said, yeah, way back, Black folks could not go to Myrtle Beach. They could go to Myrtle Beach to work, but not go to Myrtle Beach to lay out like we can now. And I said a lot of them end up going to Atlanta Beach or the African American beach or Black beach or whatever you call it. And they looked at me and they said, you know what? I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. Because they were never told. So I thought about it, and then I said, how would you know? Because when I was in school, and as we all know now in history, they don't want to talk about things that they need to talk about because of the critical race theory. And they said, I didn't know that. I realized then that we, as people of African American descent, have done a terrible job of telling our own history because we don't know what we went through. Maybe if the young people know what we went through, maybe they would look at things a little different. Maybe they would look at school a little different. Maybe they would look at the community a little different. Maybe they would look at gun violence a little different. Maybe. So why don't we try some new things? So why don't we try to educate young African Americans of the positive role that we've played? And so what I'm going to start to do each time I come on this program is talk about those things. And I think once we build those things, I think it will help. You know, we talk about sports all the time, but if I say to you, who's the first Black chief surgeon, no one has a faintest idea. In 1881 was Charles Purvis. Maybe if you tell people that we had a Black Surgeon General, maybe somebody else might want to be the Black Surgeon General. And we don't talk about the creativity that we have in our community. A lot of times we talk about things of that nature, of basketball or sports or music, but we've done so many other things that we need to talk about. Things that people don't think about but take for granted. Like if I say to you, Peter Hill, you would say, who is Peter Hill? He lived from 1767 to 1820. He was the first Black clockmaker in America. You probably didn't know that. Why you didn't know it? Because we didn't look at it, because nobody's never told us. So I'm going to start to say to us when I come on this program, we're going to have to do some history. If I say in 1892, his Sarah Boone, you will say, who was that? She was the first person to receive a patent for iron board. Now, there were iron boards that people used to set on top of chairs and iron, but she's the one that came up with the legs and the collapsible legs and stuff. It was a person of color. So if we don't start tooting our own horn, then shame on us. The other thing I want to address tonight is that I constantly hear economic development and political power. Well, my feeling of that is this here. I hear comments all the time saying that all kinds of people come in and open all kinds of stores in our neighborhood, and they don't really care about us. Well, I want to pose a question to you tonight. So if all those stores was to close up and move out, who do you know that look like us that would step up and open them stores? I'm just asking you that. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. If they all closed up and we had to open them up, who's going to step up and run them? So if we don't have nobody else to run them, if we're not going to do it, then stop complaining. We always complain about this and that. We complain about the justice system. We complain about government. We complain about the judicial system. We complain about it all. But what did we do to change it? Do we run people for judges? Do we run people to be police women or policemen? Do we run people to make sure that we control our school boards to have people on there that what we think or what we believe? I'm only posing questions tonight, not answers, but questions, because I want you to think about it, because I think it's very important. So I'm going to start addressing those things this year, because I asked myself the other day, okay, Richard, you got this podcast and you like to talk about political things, and you bring people on who would never be on to talk about their products or their vision or their dreams, which is very good because we don't have a lot of those projects. But I made up my mind that I'm not just going to come on here from now on and say, toot toot, what's all bad, because I don't think that's right. We need to talk about what we should do good, but what is our responsibility? And that's what I'm asking tonight. So, I'm going to leave you with a couple of things tonight, and I want you to think about it. You have to do better if you want to do better. Think about that. You have to do better, but if you want to do better. So when we walk down, if you don't want to do better, then you're not going to do better. My father always had a saying. I say, how you doing? Doing the best I can. That's what he used to say. I'm saying to you, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, you do better. So I'm saying to everybody tonight, if you feel that you're nothing, then you will be nothing. If you believe that you are somebody, you will be somebody. So I'm going to move my approach from now on to being positive, for us to be positive, because the burden of negativity has been on our shoulders for a long time. Whether it's the concept that we've learned from crabs in the barrel to not understanding our own agenda. And so I've said this all the time, and then I'm going to bring my guest on. We always wait for somebody to ride through our neighborhoods to take care of us. We've been waiting for a long time, and I don't think it's going to come. So now I believe it's our responsibility to look out for ourselves. So I'm going to close with that tonight. And so what am I bringing on tonight? I have my good friend, Tony Ross. All of you know him because he comes on the program. And when I'm not here, he's on the program. And he's on here with me a lot. And I made a decision. I'm going to have Tony do a lot more because he's much more younger and he has much more vision sometimes, because we got to reach back to pull up. So if I want to do well, then I got to step up to the game and put my hand and reach back for him so that he can reach up to where I'm at, and he can reach back and pull somebody else up. Because that's always been a thing. We never prepare anybody for anything else because it's always about us. And the night I thought was very important. I'm going to start off 2023 with the vision where I think we are, or where we think we're going to be politically. Because politically is very important. We take it for granted. We walk around here, say, woe me, woe me, woe me. And we also wait till the horse is already out the barn, down the road, and we trying to figure it out. So my job this year is to keep us on our toes so that we can be prepared at any given time. Because I'm determined that we are not going to fall asleep at the switch. So Tony, come on in, brother.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much. And happy holidays to everybody. And happy New Year.
Okay, Tony, let's talk about 2023. What do you think we should be concerned about, whether it's in Pennsylvania or whether it's in the United States, that's going to affect us? And before you respond to that, I just want to throw this out. You understand, ladies and gentlemen, there's a such thing as a long game and a short game.
Right.
I always said this before. Democrats, y'all always into the short game, and we come up at the short end. Republicans, y'all play the long game, and have been very fruitful for you. So in that context, you got it, brother.
Sure. Why don't we start out talking about Harrisburg, about the short game versus the long game. So for all the listeners out there that you have, today, the Pennsylvania State House elected a speaker. So a lot of people felt that the speaker was going to be Joanna McClinton, a Democrat from Philadelphia. And but there's a great line that Richard used to say to me when I was a young buck in the game, and you'd say, do you have the votes? And if you don't have the votes, you're not going to get what you want to get. And what has happened in the Pennsylvania State House tonight is that they did elect a speaker, but it's not Leader McClinton, the Democratic leader. She has right now 99 votes, and the Republicans have 101 votes, I believe, or 100 votes, and they were at an impasse. And I don't know who brokered the deal, but the people decided all the Democrats and about 16 Republicans voted in Mark Rossi, who's a Democrat from the Berks County area, who many people may know as the guy who was one of the main people fighting for the survivors of priest abuse scandals. And he is going to be the Speaker of the House. But the funny thing is, again, talking about the long game, the Republicans, what they did is Mr. Rossi has now renounced his membership in the Democratic Party and is going to be an independent. So whether there are 3 seats that are currently vacant and there are going to be special elections for that seat, even if the Democrats win all 3, if they win all 3, it would be 101 to 101 and 1 independent, the Speaker. So, and it works out well for the Republicans because their leader, Brian Cutler from Lancaster County, has already served as Speaker, so he doesn't care if he doesn't serve as Speaker again. And it just goes to show you, what you've always told me, Richard, do you have the votes or do you not have the votes? And do you play the short game versus the long game? But let's talk about it a little bit more, Richard, if you have some questions about what happened today.
What's that mean? And here's why I'm asking you this. Okay, we had news releases and we became very raw because we saw the Speaker of the House of Pennsylvania becoming a Black female,
Right.
which is very positive. And we all felt very good about that. So the maneuvering now is, if I correctly understand, that she's not going to be the Speaker.
That's correct.
But he's going to be the Speaker. And he's
Right.
Even though he was a Democrat before, but now he's going to be an independent.
Yes.
So who does it really benefit? Does it benefit 2 things I want to say? Does it benefit the Republicans or benefit the Democrats? But here we saw this historical moment that we thought was going to happen. Did we get outmaneuvered? Or what happened? What do you think happened?
Well, I think a number of things happened. I think number one, I think we did get outmaneuvered. Frankly, Mr. Cutler took counted all the votes and realized that it depends on when are they going to have these special elections. And one is for Representative Tony DeLuca's seat, he died. And one is for Austin Davis's seat, who's now the lieutenant governor. And the other one is for Summer Lee, who's in Washington. We'll talk about her in a little bit later, and all the shenanigans that are going on in Washington, D.C. But he took the position, as well as most people in this caucus. You're not the majority leader, or you're not the speaker until you're the speaker. And I think that it'll let it be a lesson to all of us in the Democratic Party. You don't count your tickets before they're hatched. So she'll be the Democratic leader again this session, but she will not be the speaker. So I think he saw an opportunity and he took it. I don't think it's necessarily he didn't want it to be a Black woman. He just said, we want to remain in power.
So I'm a little put
And
back.
what's so crazy about it is the fact that he decided to become an independent. He could have stayed a Democrat, but he became an independent. So that tells me that was a deal going on before they hit the floor today. They had this deal a while ago, had to have.
Well, I mean, I've been around a long time. Politics, everybody knows. Not down to being, that could be in any organization. I tell people this all the time, any organization, whether it's church, whether it's civic, whatever. You don't bring things up till you think you got the votes, especially if you
Right.
want to wait. And if you don't got the votes, you might want to prolong it, because that's just the nature of politics, good, bad, and the difference. So now, how will this affect us in terms of we will have a Democratic governor?
Right. Well, I think the House, it's bad, but it's not fatal to our interest. It would have been better had we had Joanna Clinton or a member of their caucus become the speaker, because then you, as you know, Richard, the speaker has a bit different appointments to different boards. It appoints to people on committees. We'd have had, one more person per committee on, but now it'll be even, Republican and Democrat, which is not best, but it's not worst either. So I think we could have had a very much better situation had Mrs. McClinton been elected. But it is what it is. It's elections politics. As you mentioned, we have a Democratic governor coming in this year, Mr. Shapiro, and I'm really interested. I'm glad you mentioned this, because I'm really interested to see how he moves. Governor Wolf was not of the legislature. He was he owned a furniture company in New York, and then he worked a little bit for Governor Rendell, and his two lieutenant governors, or at least the last one, Mr. Fetterman, did not come out of the legislature. So he really had a strained relationship with our legislators. Whereas Governor Shapiro, Governor-elect Shapiro, he was a member of the state house. He was also a county commissioner in Montgomery County and had to work with the legislative delegation from Montgomery County to get things done. And Austin Davis, who is his lieutenant governor, with him coming into power, he comes out of the state house as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he tries to move differently than Governor Wolf. I don't really know how he'll do, but he sort of signaled that he wants to work in a bipartisan manner. I mean, he's taken some criticism from people on the left about him appointing certain people to his transition team, certain people who are Republicans, but it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Let me follow back up on that, especially since you talked about governor-elect. And I know that he wants to work across the aisles. And I know that his transition team and people he's put on has been Democrats, Republicans, and he says he wants to bring them all together to the big tent. History has told us in the past that has not always worked. I think Obama attempted to do that. I think that Biden has attempted to do that, but it has not worked. So on one side, you want to give Governor-elect the benefit of the doubt. He will be able to do a better job. But this is my question, and that's fine. Here's my only issue, and maybe you can relate to it. Based on my experience and based on the history that I know, that's fine. But what happens sometimes is you forget who brought you to the party. My concern is that that's great. But traditionally and based on history, in 4 years, when he has to run for re-election, he's first got to get through the primary as a Democrat, not as a Republican, or not as a bipartisan candidate. My concern is that we become so bipartisan, you forget who brought you to the dance. And I'm telling you, folks are tired of always coming to the party, but get left out at the dance overall. So what do you think about that?
I think you're right. I mean, I think in a lot of cases that some people would argue that Governor-elect Shapiro is setting up for his reelection already on day one with this bipartisan effort, around certain issues that he's going to work on. And he probably figured, it sounds like he doesn't figure that he's going to get primaried at all. If you wanted to make sure that he sort of appeals to the Democratic base, there should be an opponent for him. Now, we're 4 years away from a Democratic primary, we would know, but I think history would tell us that, he's going to run unopposed in the primary. So he probably would, he is probably going to run from the start for the general election.
All right,
hear
let's-
you.
Okay,
Good,
but let's
Richard.
be real. He had a weak candidate in this election.
Right.
4 years from now, Republicans, I don't care what nobody tell me, they're very disciplined and they're very loyal, good, bad, or indifferent.
Mm,
They're going to go with who they believe is going to be the Republican 4 years from now. See, my point is this here. I'm setting it up now so that people don't forget 4 years from now, the conversation that you and I are having 4 years up front. No
yeah.
question. Because if he believes, and I understand most of the time that the incumbents in traditionally in Pennsylvania has usually been a second term. Now, yeah, we had a couple that didn't happen.
Tom Corbett.
Just like traditionally, you usually had 8 years of a D and then 8 years of an R, and that's not happening anymore. So my point is that we as elected body that's institutionalized, we got to make sure that people do not forget how they got to the dance.
I agree.
And we gotta stay focused on that, because if we don't, we lose out. I've been in this business too long and I've seen too many promises to us. But when it's all said and done, that's what it was.
Well, one of the issues that sort of touches on what you're touching on right now, Richard, is some of the appointments, at least right now, the governor-elect has made. So he's appointed as chief of staff, who's a woman, who he worked with closely. I think he's appointed 4 deputy chiefs of staff. I think one of them is African American, the rest are not. So, people should be really watching this. And then I guess the coming up will be the cabinet secretaries. But we need to really look at that, because that will tell us a lot about how if Governor-elect Shapiro is really paying off his debts to the Democratic Party and to the African Americans, which has always been a Democratic stronghold.
But I think at the same time, we have to understand that we have to be smarter too. And when I say we have to be smarter too, a lot of times we get appointed to cabinet positions, or we get put in positions that are feel good. I think the key is going to be, what are some of the major policies that affect us in our community? And I think that one of the things that we need to do is to hold our elected officials accountable, not let them off the hook. If we talk about economic development, then we need to make sure that economic development is in all communities. Not in some, in all communities.
Right.
If we talk about education, and we know that the education is deplorable, if that's what you feel and believe, then we got to make sure that we get the tools or the necessary things to try to help us do a better job in education. But it's not only just the governor, but I also hold the communities themselves,
Right.
the school board members, because we talk a lot, but we don't back it up. We make ourselves feel good. We go out and we protest and we sing songs, we do all that. But when it comes down to substance, we seem to fall asleep at the switch. And I think now, this day and age with Twitter, with all these other kinds of things, it's going to change a lot because now it's in your face.
Yeah. And I think, Richard, you touched on this as well. What are the 2023 races that are going to affect us? And so in Philadelphia, the mayor's race is going to happen where there's a mayor with who's not elected. I mean, it'll be a vacant seat. And there, as I understood already, 10 people already running for mayor of Philadelphia. That's a very important election. Out in Allegheny County, where you're from, Richard, they're talking about county executive, but I know there are quite a few Democrats who've already announced, and I have not heard of any Republicans announcing, but I'm sure they'll get some as well. So, these are, and then as you also mentioned, Richard, we have school board races. So these are very important races that we need to be involved with. County commissioners as well are up for election as well.
That's why I said to all of you out there, those of you who are on the fence thinking about running for office or not, you got to step up to the plate. You got 2 to 3 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, you got 3 weeks to decide if you're going to run for office. Talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to everybody, and talk to them about the support and talk about what you can bring to make things different. So I'm putting everybody on. There's councils up. You got county commissioners, district attorneys, all kinds of things up. But you got a plan. You got a plan for them now. You can't wait till the last minute.
Right,
That's
and this is a good,
And
a good time to develop the policy proposals that no matter who wins, we would want them to support. So, for example, as you mentioned, economic development, we should have forward plans for each and every jurisdiction, city, county, of what we would like to see in terms of economic development. And we should ask them, each of them, Republican, Democrat, or independent candidates, about their positions on these type of issues.
Well, not only that, all this money that Biden has gotten and all this money that's going to all these cities, all this money that's going to all these states, what are we doing to make sure that we are part of it? We got to find out what's the processes, and then we need to step up to the plate to make sure that we can do what's necessary. So if you got to fill out 500 forms, then fill out the 500 forms. Don't allow anybody, it's 500 forms and you get mad because you say that's too many. If it's 500, it's 500. It's not 450, it's 500. You got to go back and do the research now. There's a lot of money out there. A lot of your businesses out there. All of you out there who say you're business people, do your research. Find out what you can bring to the table to make it beneficial to you. Okay? We all know the games. So if you can't get that big bond, then maybe you sit down and you talk to some other people and you develop a group, or how you're going to get the financing, or how you're going to get whatever. You cannot wait till they start digging up the hole, the dirt in the ground, and say, oh, where are we at? It's too late. You got to do it before the shovel goes in the ground. And I made up my mind that I'm going to say those things, good, bad, or indifferent. Look, history tells us a lot of things, and that's why it's important for us to start learning history, because most history things don't change, they just flip back and forth. So we know there's a lot of money out there. So what are we doing to get some of it? What are we doing to make sure that it benefits our community? What are we doing to make sure that if some people get some contracts, they can hire some people to jobs? We need jobs. People say we need jobs. Well, we need jobs, but you got to do something to get jobs and to get the money for the jobs. I am now at this point in my life. We got to stop begging. Because we've been begging, and we have not gotten anything. Got some crumbs, don't misunderstand me. And a few people have gotten rich. I'm not knocking it. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But if we want to be serious and we want to be real, we're going to have to start talking the real talk. Because we've been talking, but nobody's been to listen. So all I'm saying, all this money out there, President Biden saying he wants to make sure that minorities get a better piece of it. That's what he said. We say we want to make sure we get a better piece of it in our communities. Then, are you going down to city council? Are you going to the county commissioner meetings? Are you going to the things that's necessary to say, okay, what are you going to chunk this money out for? And when they tell you, if you think it's good, you say, I commend that. If it's not, you say it's not. And then you figure out how it's going to benefit us. And when I say us, our community, because ladies and gentlemen, it's nothing wrong to make money. And it's nothing wrong if we get some people that can get some of that money who can hire some of us. We got to do our homework and our research. And we got to stop saying it ain't fair. Life ain't fair. So my point is this here. Then if it says you have to have 500 forms, then you fill out 500 forms. And you fill them out right. And you fill them out correct. If the deadline is at a particular time, you get it in on the deadline. We understand the rules now. Let's be honest here. Tony, you and I both know they say, oh, it ain't fair. You know, they said 5 o'clock, but I got there at 5 after 5. You knew it was 5 o'clock, so get there at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock.
Right.
So Tony, I know that I just get tired because we get a lot of excuses.
Right.
So what do you think we should do to help ourselves to be better stewards of the money and have a better seat at the table?
I think we're trying to work towards that right now. I think we need to get together groups of people to come together. We have people and I think we have to utilize our resources. So we have to use people from different fields, people in finance, people in construction and other areas that you've talked about, Richard. And we got to put them together and then go to work with it. That's what I think we ought to do.
We got a lot of smart people out there.
That's right.
A lot of smart people out there that can bring a lot to the table. 3 things: we don't know them, or we don't trust them. We got something negative to say about them.
Right.
But the bottom line is, we all need each other, good, bad, and indifferent. And it's time for us to put the pettiness away and let it be beneficial for all of us. You agree with that?
I do. I agree with it 100%.
You know, it's just like Harrisburg has a city council vacancy. They're looking for people to apply. So some of you go down there and apply. Don't wait till next month and say, I didn't know it was a vacancy. Yeah, there's a vacancy because the one guy that was on there, he's now state rep.
Oh yeah, Dave. I forget his name.
Yeah, Yeah, but I'm just saying, you be prepared for that. So some of you who like to do that, do that. And I put it in perspective this way. It's just like we go to Congress, and in Congress, they already told you what they wanted to talk about. The Republicans told you in the House. Oh, they want to talk about impeachment. Oh, they want to
Yeah.
talk about Hunter Biden. They want to talk about Biden. They want to talk about the FBI. And I always laugh when they bring up the FBI because,
Yeah.
we in America, African Americans, Black folks in America is always questioning the judicial system. So the things that all of a sudden, when it ain't for you, all of a sudden it ain't fair. But when we told you it wasn't fair, it wasn't right.
Yes.
So what is your vision? What is your vision for us in 2023? We're not talking about 2024. So I'm not going to talk about who's going to run for
Wow.
president. But what can we do this year that's so important? I'm
I
talking
think
about
we
this.
gotta, I'm sorry, Richard, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I think we gotta play the long game, and I think we need to take lessons from ourselves and from other people to go forward. So, for example, let's look at the US House of Representatives. So that just is so funny to me. Now, they had 4 votes today to vote for a speaker, and they don't have a speaker yet. So Speaker, Kevin McCarthy has 202 votes, and there are 20 to 19 fellow Republicans who won't vote for him. And there's 212 for Hakeem Jeffries, who's the Democratic leader. And one of the people who's one of the main culprits of this is our congressman, Scott Perry. Speaking of which, we were speaking about the Harrisburg City Council because he ran against a city council member last time. And what are they doing there? He's utilizing everything at his disposal. It's legal to keep him from becoming speaker. So I think that is a thing that we need to do, both when you look at what happened in Harrisburg and now what's going on in Washington, D.C. These people don't care. They're going to use everything at their disposal to get things done. And I think we have to be the same way.
No, I agree with you. And since you brought that up, it took Pennsylvania a while before they certified the election.
Yep.
And all these people who felt that the ballot and the election wasn't fair. And the remarkable part, they used the law that was created in 1927. 1927 is when that law was put in about making sure that you had a fair election. Now we know in 2023, with all the new funding and modern detection of improvements of fraud, it's much different than what it was in 1927. But this is they held it up for weeks. Who knew about the 1927 law to stop all of this? But they did, because you can go in and you can say, I think that, and go in the precincts or whatever and say, I think in such and such it was questionable. So it held up the count. This is what I mean about we have to do research and understanding. So now we know they're going to challenge every election from now on. Y'all can believe that. They're going to challenge it. If it's not to their result, they challenge it. It ain't fair. Something's wrong. Which is remarkable to me. If they win, they accept it. But if they lose, they don't accept it. So we have to become a little bit more sophisticated, saying, okay, you want to play them little games, we can play those little games as well. They're petty, but we need to let them know we can play the same games. And that's the problem. We don't do that.
Yep, I agree.
I just think from now on, we got to take the gloves off, man. We's in a war. And if we don't want to believe we are, then that's shame on us.
That's right. And so now they're wondering whether the Democrats will help out Mr. McCarthy. Now, there are a lot of Democrats who feel like McCarthy, I'm not helping that guy because he talked about us like a dog, cussing up to former President Trump. We just don't know. But so we don't know if Democrats might take a walk tomorrow and lower the number that he needs to win, or they're going to just sit back and just watch what happens. It'll be interesting. But they went into recess today and they come back to the House tomorrow. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Okay, so what else do you think that, especially in Pennsylvania, we need to be concerned about?
Well, I think, again, the elections are very important. So all the elections that we talked about earlier today is the mayor's race in Philadelphia, the city council, not the county executive race out in Allegheny County are very important. There are also going to be not city council, Supreme Court races. And I know, Richard, you talk a lot about judicial races. And so there are a number of judicial races, and I think there's a few, I think 2 or 3 Supreme Court seats that are up. So this is something that we need to be involved with, as you point out, at the city council level, at the state party level, to make sure that we have our people involved and and actually become candidates for Supreme Court, as well as some of the other courts at the state level.
I do. That's what I'm talking about. We got some great judicial people out there that are top notch, but they don't run for a lot of reasons. One, they don't think they can win, and it takes money.
Right.
And we have to try to encourage some of these judicial people that are top notch to consider running for judge. But at the same time, we're going to have to finance them and help them get there. And we don't do that. So if we don't do that, then you can't ask people to run. I think that's the other thing that I think that we need to talk about sometime, is about fundraising, about what it takes to run for office. People run for office because they believe they can make a change, but it's kind of hard to give up your job, or it's kind of hard to spend all that time, and you don't know if you're going to win or not, even though you believe you want to win and you think you can win. And I'm looking at all these numbers the numbers running for the governor was crazy. The number running for the U.S. Senate's crazy. The number even run for mayor is crazy. And even in small towns, sometimes it's crazy. And
Right.
I think we need to start to developing or starting to teach that we have to, if we're going to support a candidate, we have to do more than just say we're going to support them, and develop the financial machines to get them there. If you go back and you look at who supported, whether it's Trump or who supported this one, go back and look at who supported these people and see what kind of money they gave. And then ask yourself, why did they give it? And a lot of times they give it because of philosophy.
Right. The Koch brothers, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can also look at, again, going back to your long-term, play, Mitch McConnell, it's been said, or he has said, the biggest thing that he could do was to appoint as many judges as he could get. And so that's why he put up with Donald Trump to a large extent, is because he gave up all the judges that they wanted. So that's why we want to get involved with the way that they do on their side, setting up, different think tanks and things of that nature to get people prepared to appoint new justices. Because I think one of the good things about Joe Biden, and it came up, I guess, again in the race in Georgia, where he had one with Senator Warnock against Herschel Walker, that he's appointed more judges than Obama and Trump. And now that he has a 2-seat majority, it'll be easier for him to get them passed. So that's an important thing to keep in mind.
No, I agree with that. But as I'm sharing and you and I talking, and I guess I'm more motivated on trying to get people to run for office. Because
Right.
a lot of people out there, you're good, you're smart, you're bright. We need you. I guess if I could do it, I guess I would form a draft and draft these people. Because I hear people have great ideas. I mean, great ideas, but they won't run for a lot of reasons. Now, some of it could be, I do understand some of it because I do understand. I ain't that naive. I do understand. You run because you care and you believe in what you believe in, and then half of them holler at you and scream at you and attack you, and you sit back and you say, is it worth it? And
right.
I'm saying at this point in time, 2023, 2024, we're gonna have to call all the soldiers out now. Because it's obvious, it's so obvious now. I don't want to use the word, it's obvious the war. Culture's changing, things are changing. And as unemployment, especially for people of color, ain't good. And since it ain't good, what do we do about it? Well, this is what we do about it. We make sure that we prepare our community to take on the task. So we need to develop the skills, and we need to make sure where the pots of money is that we can get it. Because I want people to understand one thing. We have never, ever, ever asked for a handout, even though that's always been projected of us. We have always been hard workers. I've never understood this. When I've heard things about us being lazy, I used to ask myself, how can we be lazy when we work sun up to sundown 6 days a week? There's no logic to that, but we don't tell that story. We let people define who we are. And that's why I have this program, because I think that we, not just me, I hope a lot of you have programs. And some of you need to have programs. You ought to have seminars. You need to have all kinds of speakers in so that we can become better educated and better prepared. And get off of this one, that one, because I tell people this all the time. Now, I'm going to let you close with all this because I'm going to give you the show the next 5 minutes. Understand one thing. When the ship, the Titanic, sunk, the whole ship went down. Not part of it, the whole ship. And we have a responsibility to protect our community, and we need to prepare ourselves to handle it. Whether that means that we need to have good accountants, good engineers, good teachers. We need to be on our A game. And I think that we got a lot of people out there on the A game, but we never asked them or they never thought about it. So my thing is, we going after what should be part of everybody's. We're not asking anybody to give us anything special, but give us what we deserve. But when we get it, we got to do the right thing. So Tony, what do you think in the next 5 minutes of your program? What would you tell your audience?
Well, I will, first of all, would like to thank you, Richard, for tonight's program. It was a great to talk to you and to talk about very important issues for the community. I think, I think what it comes down to is we got to be active and engaged to, whether it's a person running for United States Senate or US Congressman, or more importantly, those offices that are close to your home. So like your mayors and your council people and your school boards. And I would encourage you to, one, develop a plan with your friends and neighbors to go when you go out and you have an opportunity to meet these people, to ask them what they think about these things. You'll be very surprised. They'll probably want to, they'll be really receptive to you because you're very active and you're engaged. So I would tell you to do that. And I think, and then I would also encourage you to consider running yourself. Not everyone will want to do it, or maybe doesn't have the means to do it, but I hope you would consider going out and trying, even if it's not a big race like US Senate or Congress, but try the school board or council or something like that. It's important that we have good people representing us as well.
Okay, I'm going to end with this here. I think that growing up, and I see a lot of people, and I see who responds to my podcast sometimes, that are very bright people. And I think that people need to reach back to some of us that are a little older. And all of you out there got some wisdom. And I was looking at one of my friends on there. He's going to be shocked that Brother Parker is watching this program. Brother Parker, you got a lot of experience and knowledge, but you got to use that experience and knowledge to bring some other folks in. Because one of the things that you and I need to understand, and we both do, we didn't have it easy. And since we didn't have it easy, we know the bumps in the road. So I'm calling on all of us. The bumps in the roads that we have, we need to articulate this to the younger generation so they don't have the same bumps in the road. And I think that we owe a obligation to ourselves and to the legacy, to whoever we are, whatever we are, to give to our community, because there were so many people that reached out and helped me and encouraged me that I wouldn't be here today. And it's our job to put our hand back and reach up and pull somebody else up. And it's all not about sports. It ain't all about music. It's about everyday life. And I'm going to leave you with this. As I said when I first started this program, I hear all the time, oh, all these people buying up all these little mom and pop stores in our neighborhood. And if they all left, are any of you going to pick up the slack? I'm just asking. I'm just asking. Now, that's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. Tony, thank you for being on the program. And as I've shared with everybody, I have this program because I just feel that I just want to talk about things that sometimes that we should talk about. And as the year gets on, I'm going to get a little bit more rough around the edges, because I'm going to start calling people out or institutions out that I think that we can work together. I think that the urban leagues, I think the Ys, I think the Boys and Girls Club, I think that the Masonics, I think the fraternities, I think the sororities, and I think the churches, we all have to pull together. Because remember one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I like to make you think. I just thought of something. And especially in the Black community, we don't balance. We the churches are over here and politics is over there. But go back and look at the Donald Trumpsism and you'll see if the churches is over here and the politics is over there. Have a good evening. Thank you and welcome. Again,
Thank you for joining the Richard
Join-
Utley Show on the Voice
Happy New Year's.
17104. We will be here on the Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions,